Welcome into the BK Lounge, and whoa, what the hell just happened at DKR? Oh my goodness, Texas escapes Kansas with a 50-48 victory. That came down to the final second. Cameron Dicker the kicker, the hero in this one tonight, a 33-yard field goal as time expired to give the Longhorns the 2-point win over Kansas and prevent the most embarrassing loss, well, since the last time Texas lost to Kansas 3 years ago. My goodness, that game had a little bit of everything. I mean, an incredible game from start to finish. If you're not playing Kansas, that's awesome. That's a fun college football game to watch. And if you're not a Longhorn fan, you're not a Jayhawk fan, hell, maybe if you are a Jayhawk fan because you were playing with house money at the end of that one. But if you're not a Longhorn fan, that had to be a hell of a game to watch. Back and forth, both teams went a ton of points. It was a classic Big 12 defensive showcase, and Texas escapes. The Big 12 hopes are still alive for the Longhorns, but man, it's hard to think about that after a performance like this. Near disaster, and it almost feels like a loss for Texas today. I realize on the ticker I have at the bottom line, I have the score wrong. 50-48 was the final in this one, and the Longhorns, once again, a final second Dicker the kicker game-winning field goal from 33 yards out. I only have 25 minutes or so for this video before I have to go to the station at 104.9 The Horn to do the post-game show. I encourage everyone to listen to that. You can also call in and text into that show, but feel free to comment any thoughts, any questions, whatever is on your mind from Texas 50, Kansas 48. Let's start with the bad, because I feel like you have to when you only beat Kansas by 2 at home. This defense is terrible, man. And I just got a text, what's wrong with this defense? And you can't say everything. That's the answer. Everything is wrong with this defense. You start up front. I mean, this defensive line got pushed around by Kansas today. This team is incapable of pressuring the opposing quarterback without bringing at least 6 or 7 defenders. If they don't blitz, they cannot pressure the opposing quarterback. It doesn't matter who they're playing against, whether it's Oklahoma last week or a team even as bad as Kansas this week. And sorry, Longhorn Network announcers, I like you guys as people, but Kansas is not a very good football team. I've watched every KU football game this year. They are better with Les Miles, but you can't try to pump that as, Kansas is really good, they're much improved, and none of that. Texas is really bad. So the defensive line, a problem. That's not just tonight. That's all year. And Texas got its first sack of Carter Stanley tonight. I think they only had 1 sack of the KU quarterback, but that's the first sack Texas has had in 3 games. So pressure's been a problem. Obviously, you want to lump in the whole front 7 or maybe front 6 or front 5, depending on what defense Texas is playing. I don't even know what the base defense is for the Longhorns right now. 7 games this year for the Horns. They've had 7 different defensive schemes, and if we're being quite honest, most of them have not worked for Todd Orlando. But the fronts, the defensive linemen, the linebackers, hell, you can throw the entire defense into this one. Kansas rushed for 259 yards tonight, averaged 6.6 yards per carry. Started with Puka Williams, 25 for $190, 2 touchdowns for him. He's a special player. He's a hell of a running back. But, Texas made him look like Jim Brown tonight. Carter Stanley, looking like Quincy Carter, prime Dallas Cowboys Quincy Carter. I didn't realize that guy was a dual threat. I've been watching him play at Kansas for 4 years, and he was running all over this Texas defense. They had no answers for the 2-back zone read play, which Kansas ran time and time again tonight. Carter Stanley, 65 yards on the ground, averaged 7.2 yards per carry. And oh, by the way, that includes the sack yardage as well. So it was probably more than that. And then this Texas secondary, they're banged up. A lot of injuries. You lost Brandon Jones midway through the second half tonight as well, but man, I mean, they got torched by Carter Stanley. 310 yards, 4 touchdowns for Stanley. Kansas receivers time and time again were wide open down the field. Now, they were making some great plays. There's no doubt about that. There were times where Texas corners were in good position and Kansas was just better to the football. But, man, more often than not, Kansas had a wide receiver open on every play, and that's a common occurrence here in 2019. And you're going up against Kansas. Like, I understand that against Oklahoma when your secondary is as banged up as it is. I understand that happening, but hell, I mean, in a neutral site game, you held OU with that offense, with the talent they have on that side of the football. You held them to 34, and you give up 48 in your own backyard to Kansas tonight. Truly unbelievable. Some comments coming in. I advise you, if you're watching this live, feel free to comment. If you're watching after the fact, feel free to comment as well. I will get to those in a second. But man, I mean, it was fair to question Todd Orlando and the job he's done this year going into tonight's game. More than fair to question if he's the right guy after this game. The problem is, Texas is in a cycle of firing defensive coordinators in year 3. Saw it with Manny Diaz, where year 1, the defense was awesome. Year 2, there were some signs of deterioration. And year 3, midway through the year after the BYU game, sorry to bring that up, he gets fired. Saw it with Vance Bedford as well under Charlie Strong. Year 1, defense really good. Year 2, starting to deteriorate. Year 3, midway through the season, Bedford fired. Charlie Strong takes over. And that's the year you actually lost to Kansas. And same thing with Todd Orlando. Year 1, defense, pretty good. You had some talented dudes, some NFL players. Defense was pretty good. Last year, some signs of deterioration, still pretty good, but the West Virginia game, the Oklahoma State game, the fourth quarter against Oklahoma, the Big 12 championship against Oklahoma too, there were some signs of deterioration, and obviously this year the wheels have completely fallen off this Texas defense, and that was manifested tonight as Kansas puts up 48. I'm looking at my phone here for the total yards. 569 yards of total offense to Kansas. The Jayhawks, 10 of 19 on third down, 2 of 2 on fourth down. They had 27 first downs as a team. No turnovers. No turnovers for this Kansas offense. Oh my gosh. So this Texas defense is really bad. And I can't really pinpoint one problem with the defense because the entire defense is a problem. I mentioned it a couple of minutes ago. I don't know the identity of this defense. And we talked about it on the radio here in Austin, and every Longhorn fan talked about it. Look, Texas was losing 8 starters from last year's defense. This was the least experienced defense going in to the start of a Texas season in decades. We figured there would be a learning curve, some growing pains. I didn't think it would be 48 points given up to Kansas at home bad. I didn't think we'd be 7 weeks into the season still not knowing what the hell this defense really does well. Once again, injuries are a thing, but you know what, to hell with that. I'm sounding like the coaches. I'm sounding like I'm getting paid by the university right now. That was bad. That was a problem, and this defense is not very good. TCU in Fort Worth next week. I'm not getting off of Kansas just yet. Don't worry about that. But TCU, another subpar offensive team. Hopefully Texas can put up a better defensive showing. Then you've got the second bye week of the year after that. So maybe some time for the Longhorns to turn things around for the home stretch, but tonight did not look good. And my family's in town today. I had lunch with my parents, and I've got a sister who goes to Texas, and she's graduating on December 7th, which is the date of the Big 12 championship game up at Jerry World. My parents asked me today, they're like, your sister's graduating, you're going to go, right? And I was like, nah, I don't know. Might have to be in Dallas. Well, I feel pretty good about saying I'm going to be able to make it to my sister's graduation now. Obviously, Texas won tonight's game, even though it doesn't feel like it. This team still controls its own destiny, but the Longhorns have trips to Ames, Iowa, and to Waco against an undefeated Baylor team that looked pretty good in Stillwater today. I don't know how you can feel confident with this defense going up against those two quarterbacks and those two offenses. They've got to get some things figured out quickly. The Texas offense, 638 yards of offense. They put up 50 points. Like 2 turnovers, they were bad. Horrible. No good, very bad interception for Sam Ehlinger, something you rarely see And that was a big momentum shift. I mean, it was deep in Texas territory. The first play of a Longhorn drive, throws an interception, never saw the Kansas defender. KU turns that into a touchdown. Jake Smith had a fumble as well. I think that's his second fumble loss this season. Really talented player, but true freshman, and has dealt with drops and has dealt with fumbling a little bit. I would love to see him play more for Texas, but Tom Herman, we've seen it before. He's not going to put guys on the field if they can't protect the football. That is the most important thing for a Tom Herman offense, and Jake Smith hasn't proven the ability to do that. But he fumbles, loses it. Kansas scores on that drive as well. So 2 turnovers for this Texas offense proved costly as KU put up, I think it was 14 off of that. It might have been 10. I know they scored on both of those drives. Let me check my phone here, but obviously just doing immediate reaction. Yes, 2 touchdown drives after those turnovers by the Texas Longhorns tonight. But, man, you put up 50 points. I don't know what more you could really ask for from your offense. It wasn't always a pretty game. I didn't love the play calling. I thought they should have ran the ball a little bit more, especially considering, Keontae Ingram averaged 7.2 yards per carry. Roschon Johnson, more than 4 yards a carry. Sam Ehlinger, 6.5 yards per carry. Texas ran the ball 40 times, and Tom Herman is still undefeated. I think he's 16-0 as a head coach when his teams tote the rock 40 or more times. That was really put to the test at the end of this one tonight. But you could argue this team should have ran the football a little bit more. Maybe not for offensive production, but more to keep the Kansas offense off the field and to keep the Texas defense off the field, because they were getting gassed every time they were on the field tonight. My God, I mean, I was texting a buddy during the game, and this to me felt like a game against Oklahoma, where I feel like Texas needs to score every time they have the football to have a chance to win, because I just assume whoever's quarterbacking OU with Lincoln Riley, whoever is their quarterback, they're going to score every time they have the football. You're not supposed to feel that way against Kansas, against this Kansas team. And that's what I felt like tonight. I felt like Texas had to score every time they had the football, or they were going to lose this football game. And, man, that was once again really put to the test tonight. All right, let's check some of the comments. I appreciate all of the love here on YouTube Live. Is Tom Herman still the guy? Yes, he's still the guy, but, it's fair to question him. It's fair to question everyone donning the burnt orange and white at DKR tonight. This team looks sloppy. And after all the talk of how hard this team worked at practice this past week, and I had inside sources telling me this was maybe the most physical practice Texas has had during a season in Tom Herman's tenure at Texas. The coaches were getting on the players throughout the week, and they were pissed about what happened against Oklahoma, as they should have been. You figured that stuff would work. You figured Texas would come out motivated, out to prove a point, and that clearly did not happen. This team got off to a 14-0 lead, but after that, just sloppy mistakes, bad tackling, missed assignments. This defense somehow looked even worse today against Kansas than they did against Oklahoma. But yeah, all the stuff we heard about this football team from Tom Herman, from the players, from the assistant coaches, we were told they were motivated, they'd be ready to go, and they were not. Maybe they overlooked Kansas. I don't know. I mean, Kansas is a team to overlook, but once again, after what happened last week, you'd think he'd be out to prove a point. Didn't really happen tonight for Texas, and they got TCU next week. I know that's a mini rivalry game. It's in Fort Worth, but I can't imagine you're really overlooking a team like Kansas or just any team in this type of situation. If you're Texas, they just got out-coached tonight. And we've got some Fire Todd Orlando comments. Yeah, it's fair to question Todd Orlando right now. I mean, it's not just the results for the opposing teams, although that's a huge part. Once again, 48 points, 570 yards to Kansas. It's fair to question that, but there's just no identity for this defense. And the same problems we were seeing last year, but also at the start of this year, I mean, they are still here in Week 7. The missed tackles, missed assignments. This team cannot contain dual-threat quarterbacks. Hell, they couldn't contain Carter Stanley, who's not even a dual-threat quarterback. This team does not contain. They do not set the edge. They're not disciplined. Dumb penalties, more pass interference by the defensive backs. They just don't turn around to the football when the ball is in the air. And too many blitzes tonight that just didn't hit home. And I know that's what Todd Orlando does on defense, but when you have the personnel that this secondary has, there's not a lot of talent back there. And even against the Kansas receivers, and they do have some good receivers. Parchment's a hell of a player. Robinson's a good player. Charlotte's a good player. They've got some good players in their wide receiving core. But compared to some of the dudes in this conference, those guys are just pedestrian. And this Texas defensive back unit right now, they can't cover those guys one-on-one. They can't cover anybody one-on-one. And bringing the pressure, especially when it doesn't hit home like it did not tonight more often than not, that was costly. And that is fair to question Todd Orlando for some of the play calls as well, especially on third down. I mean, it seemed like every single time Kansas had a third down, Texas brought the house, tried to pressure Carter Stanley. I get it. Every quarterback is worse under pressure, but at some point you got to change your tune because it was just not working. Credit KU, credit the offensive line, credit Carter Stanley, man. I mean, you guys, if you listen to me in Austin, you know I am a Kansas fan, not over Texas, but I am a Kansas fan, so I watch every Kansas football team. Carter Stanley is a very frustrating player. He's not very good. He's had his moments, but, man, tonight he balled out. I got to give him some credit. He played really well. Helps to go against this current rendition of the Texas Longhorns, but man, the blitzes were not hitting home to him. A couple other comments right here from you guys. Appreciate the love. That was terrible. They should have stopped going for it on fourth down and just kicked the field goal. I don't have as much of an issue with the decisions to go for it on fourth down. This is for Texas offensively. More of an issue with the play calling. Once again, your running back's averaging 7 or 8 yards per carry. Why on 4th and 1 or 4th and 2 are you doing a wildcat with Jake Smith, which you've never done this year, by the way, and you're throwing it on 4th and 2? I mean, it just makes no sense to call those plays in that situation. So apparently Michael Brantley just made an unreal play for the Astros. That game's going on right now. But yeah, the decisions to go for it, not that bad. The play calls, bad. B.J. Foster, a lot of comments about B.J. Foster. Yeah, he's not playing well. And I get it. He's hurt. He's banged up. But if you're going to give that type of performance, probably shouldn't be on the field, honestly. I mean, I know there's not a whole lot of options back there for Orlando, but, man, B.J. Foster, the guy who talked a lot of smack going into the Oklahoma game about how physical this Texas defense is, he has been exposed a lot over the last 2 weeks. It's tough. He's injured, but, man, not very good. And also Brandon Jones got hurt, so you lose another defensive back for Texas. Stop me if you've heard that one before. So this was bad. Just a bad overall performance. Luckily, Texas escapes with a victory. That's not going to make Longhorn fans feel any better for this one. But, man, 50-48 over Kansas once again, the final score. Another abysmal defensive performance by the Longhorns. And if it wasn't for Dicker the kicker, we'd be talking about the second loss to Kansas in football, by the way, in the last 40 years for Texas. What's supposed to be a blue blood program. What is a blue blood program in college football? But, man, all the Texas is back jokes. Texas has kind of been one of the butt ends of college football fans' jokes over the last decade or so. You thought maybe they're creeping out of it a little bit. They're going to be right in the headlines for the wrong reasons for this performance tonight. But they do get the win. The Horns still do control their own destiny to get to Jerry World for the Big 12 title game. But once again, I don't know how you can feel good about this team moving forward when you're going to play a lot tougher offenses in tougher environments than what you had to deal with today. Texas came into this game ranked number 15. I know they won. I wouldn't be surprised if they dropped a spot or two in the rankings. Obviously, it depends on what happens with some of the other action in college football today. But they shouldn't be going up in the rankings. And that is for damn sure. So, I'm trying to think what else. Oh, very questionable. It worked out for Texas, but how about that play call? Sending the offense on the field with 8 seconds to go in regulation. How dangerous is that? Dangerous is that? I mean, look, I have faith in Sam Ehlinger and Devin Duvernay, and obviously the play worked. They just ran a quick out route. Duvernay caught it, stepped out of bounds. 4 seconds went off the clock, so you still had enough time for the field goal attempt, but golly, you get tackled and bounce in that spot, or the play just takes 8 seconds, then, man, we're really criticizing Tom Herman a lot more than we already are. So, all right, apparently the quality of this video is going down. We're struggling a little bit. We are buffering a little bit, so I do apologize for that. But, man, just final thoughts before I get out of here. Once again, go tune into the post-game show. myself, Kevin Dunn, on the Horn, 1049 or hornfm.com. If you're outside the listening area, we'll take your calls, we'll take your texts. I'm sure there will be a lot of both of those tonight. I do apologize. I'm coming off of a cold, so sound a lot nasally. Apologies for that. But, man, final thoughts once again. And we've seen this with Tom Herman teams, and we've seen this with Texas football teams. It's almost like a perfect marriage with those two coming together, playing down to the competition. Tom Herman, Texas, you get up for the big games, but when you're playing the Kansases of the world, sometimes you play down to the competition. We saw it against West Virginia a couple of weeks ago. That game was tough and tight into quarter number 4, and we saw it to the final second, to the end of quarter number 4 tonight. This team just plays down to its competition, man. I can't explain it. I really cannot explain how it keeps happening with this program and with Tom Herman in general, but inexcusable. And you're going to lose some games like this if you let other college football teams stick around. It's as simple as that. Texas got lucky to leave with a victory tonight against this very bad, improving, but very bad Kansas football team. So back to the drawing board. Once again, defense, I don't even know how to fix it. It's my job to try to help figure out how to fix it, but I don't know. I don't make $1.7 million like Todd Orlando does. Actually, it's his job to fix it. It's my bad to just talk about things, and that's what we're doing here. But abysmal performance by the defense. Once again, Texas lucky to escape with a 50-48 victory over the Kansas Jayhawks. With the win, the Horns improved to 5-2. 3-1 now in Big 12 conference play. And one final thought on the playing down to competition thing. I thought Texas maybe turned a corner when they stomped Louisiana Tech and Rice. Now, I know that's Louisiana Tech and Rice. You're supposed to stomp teams like that. But I figured, okay, this is a new era of Texas football. Texas is really back. Winning the Sugar Bowl is awesome. That's the goal for Texas football, playing for conference championships and winning bowl games on New Year's Day. That's awesome. That's where you want to be as a program. But we didn't see from last year's Texas team, this team blow out the teams they're supposed to blow out. I was thinking, because of what we saw in the non-con, maybe that stigma surrounding Texas football was gone. They're playing down to the competition bit. But it clearly is not to this point in year 2.5 for Tom Herman and this coaching staff. So O-line and D-line are struggling. Appreciate the comments. One more to read. There's a lot of them tonight. Thank you all very much. Does the defense not even try to tackle? I think they're trying. They look like they're trying. They're just not coached well. And too often they go for the big hit instead of wrapping up and going for the tackle. I don't know. I think they're trying. I feel pretty good about that, but I guess I understand the question when you watch this defense try to tackle. Maybe it's fair to ask that, but I don't know. So, all right, guys, thanks for watching. Once again, tune into the post-game show, The Horn, hornfm.com. Have your calls, have your comments, your text ready. I will, if you comment after this video, after I go off from being live, I will try to reply to the comments in the comment section. Please like and share this video. Please subscribe to this channel. Follow me on Twitter. Spread the love. If you want some Texas football content, this is the place to be. So Texas survives. They hold on for dear life to beat Kansas in football. 50-48, the final score at DKR tonight. It is a win in the standings, but it doesn't really feel like a win in our hearts. Oh, that was so lame. Can't believe I'm going to end on that. That's disappointing. All right, y'all. Until next time, have a great weekend. Have a great night. Going to watch the rest of the sports. Enjoy yourself.